Yeah. Hello, good afternoon, good evening, whatever, good something like
But hey,
that.
before you start going into it, so I can get this out of the way, so we can get paid by
Okay.
the tourism. This lady is from Brooklyn, so Brooklyn's in the house, which is where close to where I was born, which is New York City. So I'm just saying, so
Oh,
New York and Brooklyn
okay.
are together today. This is like the old Dodgers, and we can go through
Right,
that later. Yeah, so
right.
I'm just going to take that out of the way before you make the introduction to the show, since
Yeah, well,
nobody knows I'm from New York.
no, exactly, Stephen. But
Yeah.
are you now being paid by the Brooklyn Tourist Department as well? Do you get $1
I
for that
am.
as
I
well?
talked to them the other day and I said, we're going to have a poet from Brooklyn on our show and I need to make sure that I make money because I'm Jewish. And they're like, oh, so is everybody else in Brooklyn. So there you go. So it worked out well for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
that's, I might just as well switch off now. That's the intro all done.
yeah.
We have a lady today who's a poet. I used to be a poet, but I never knew it. So her name is Janelle Tan. She's going to tell us all about Brooklyn, no doubt, and probably all about New York if she gets a chance to, because, once you push Stephen's New York button, it's difficult to switch it off. But enough of my waffle from my side. A poet based in the US. Tell us about how you became a poet.
How I became a poet. That's I feel that's a tall order of a question for me to answer. So I kind of have been a writer. I grew up in Singapore, and I've been a writer my entire life. But I came to the US for college when I was 19, and then it was there that my school had a poetry center, and I was an intern, and that was when I started to really read a lot of it, and then I started to kind of like dabble and write some, and then now I do it professionally, which is interesting. So you know how some people are always like, oh, I used to write poetry in college, and I used to write poetry in college, but I kind of stuck, and now it's kind of what I do for a living, which is wild.
Very cool. And before the show,
Yeah.
you're saying about, so you have a lot of things going for you. You've got the ninth house. So for people in astrology, we'll get a kick out of that, but you can tell us about that. And also you did a tour this summer with a band. No, I'm just kidding. You did a tour this summer. I'm assuming it was a poetry tour. So tell us about, pick A or B and tell us about either or both.
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't set out to tour. I feel like most of my life is like a happy accident at this point. It's just like I kind of just like fall into things, and then so I got an invite to do a reading in Philly. I got an invite to do a reading in Nashville.
Oh, wow.
And then I got the chance to do a couple of readings in New York City, because this interview is sponsored by the city of New York. And
you love
Stephen,
it when a guest just knows what to do here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
am I getting 50 cents for every $1 now, Stephen? Is that how it's working?
I think, yeah, we're going to cut you in on this because every guest now, I'm telling you, even before the show, you got to just mention New York. So we all get paid. So there you go.
Okay.
So anyway, so City of New York, which is sponsoring us apparently now that they don't know about it. You were touring in New York. Tell us more. So
it was interesting because I think at the point where I had like 3 readings a month where like everything was just like booking. And I was like, this is it just kind of like a tour kind of just came together very easily. And I was like, well, like now it would be kind of silly to not go on tour. So I went on tour, and it was wonderful because I had never gotten the chance to like read poetry somewhere else until this summer. And it was just like this amazing opportunity to be able to go from reading in New York and reading in Brooklyn to like, reading in like, so yeah, to like reading in Tennessee where like I lived for a while. And so it was really, really like kind of interesting. I read some poems that I wrote when I lived in Tennessee, in Nashville. It was interesting. And then I had never been to Philly, and I used that as an opportunity to, go to Philly and meet some cool Philly-based people. And yeah, it was an amazing tour. And
he's got a big bell, I heard. So that's really cool. So wait, I have a question on touring as a poet. Like I understand like a comic, what they do, they sell out an arena, we'll say. And if you're a rock band, you sell out an arena. A poet, when you tour, what are you selling out?
You know, it's really funny that you say that because
Right.
like the thing about poetry readings is that the costs to put on a show are very, very low. So
Right.
it's not like you have to sell out an entire arena.
I'm kind of being a smart ass, but so in Nashville, where did you read your poetry, and then like how many people would show up, and who put it on? Because you were invited guest. You weren't like it's the Janelle Poetry Tour, right? You don't have a T-shirt with all the dates and whatever. Someone said, "Hey, come do this, come do this, come do this." So like in Nashville, Philadelphia is, we can get into, but so in Nashville, like, so who said, "Hey, come down to Nashville and read your poetry"?
Yeah, it was interesting because so at each reading, so
Right.
usually what happens at a poetry reading is that they'll put you kind of as one reader on a bill of like 4. So there's
Okay.
usually like 3 or 4 readers, and everybody kind of like reads for like, if they're very generous, it's 15 to 20 minutes, and that's the most I've ever been given. That's like book launch.
Can I just jump in? So how does that come about anyway? Because that's the thing that's not particularly clear to me. Are these literary festivals you're going to, or book festivals, or what is the organization around that, to give us a little bit of a broader view?
Yeah, so in Philly, basically, I got invited by a journal that I got published in,
Okay.
who's Philly based. One of the poetry writers is Philly based, and she runs a reading series out of this restaurant coffee shop in Philly, and they were doing kind of a launch for this mural series they had, or like a painting series. And so she curated a bunch of people, and so yeah, I got asked to come from New York to read as part of this lineup. And in Nashville, it was interesting because what happened in Nashville was my best friend who toured, she was like on a tour of Tennessee, basically. She because she was on a tour of Tennessee, she basically like emailed a bunch of different venues and was like, "Hi, we're coming through. This is who we are. Is anyone looking for readers on their bills?" And so we ended up getting this amazing, like at the Scarlett Bennett Center in Nashville, we ended up getting like a really cool reading slot that was part of their Poets Corner pop-up. And they were so wonderful, and they like threw a lot of things into promoting it. And it was amazing. And we ended up getting to do, because there was 2 of us, so we did like 20 minutes. And then we did like a workshop at the end that was kind of just like getting people to write poems. So it was really cool because that was a little bit more interactive. That was a little bit more like reaching out to people and being like, "Hi, this is who we are. Would you fit us in your bills?" But the Philly one was definitely something that I knew the poetry editor of this particular journal prior, and she thought of me, which was really sweet.
Yeah,
very cool.
I don't want to, but sound like it's a downer or something. But a lot of people would come then. Are you reading poetry to two people, 20 people, 200 people?
It really depends, because like, so I did a reading that was part of the tour, but it was in Brooklyn, and it was this bar that was like packed. It was like maybe 50, 60 people in this bar.
Okay.
And it was
And they went there to listen to the poetry, or they were just in the bar and the poetry thing happened?
I think a lot of them came specifically to listen to the poetry, because
Okay.
this is really funny, because if someone is not there to listen to the poetry and people start reading, you can tell who's not there for the poetry, because they will all get up after the first reader and go somewhere else. So it's like the people who are truly there for the poetry stay for the whole thing, and if they're like not there, they'll be like, "Well, gotta go."
Yeah.
Have a
Nice.
conversation.
So here's a stupid question. On every movie I've ever seen, when you're done reading, they all do this. Do they do that, or do people actually still, do they clap?
It depends.
Oh, so they really do this? They really do the snappy fingers from the 1960s?
Yep, they still do
I'm
it.
going to a poetry reading. This is going to be fun. So now, can I snap while you're reading? No, never mind. So
Yeah. No, usually, so it's like, if like in slam, which is where a lot of poetry readings, there's like a whole culture around slam poetry, which I'm not a part of, but
right.
In slam, if someone says something that you resonate with, you just snap softly, and then at the end of the whole set, like at the end of someone's whole set, then you like snap.
So that's called slam poetry, huh?
Yep.
All right, I'm learning something today.
Okay, so
So,
every genre has a name then.
so now will you be touring again? Is there like a Janelle tour coming up now? And this tour will be t-shirts that we can get. So,
Yeah,
So-
it'll have slam dunk written on it, I'm sure. But
yeah, slam poetry.
Yeah.
So
See, the thing I learned on my last tour was I really want to make merch now, because I made I made
love it.
these stickers
Right.
that I made these
Well,
stickers that are so I wrote this poem that's like after I ask you to U-Haul with me. So the sticker says like U-Haul with me, which is like a joke, like a lesbian joke. Um, so I was handing those out, but like I didn't make enough. So my thing for my next tour is that I definitely want to make enough to like
More
hand out
merch.
to people, and so they have some kind of like takeaway from a reading. But I'm not touring anytime soon. I will, however, once my book sells. My book is on the market right now.
Oh, tell us about the book.
Yeah.
And by the way, for merchandising, when the Hamburglar takes his mask off and he goes back to being the normal person, he is the maven for merchandising. So yeah, so we'll talk to you about merchandising, but you have a book. So tell us about the book and where can we buy this said book?
we need to know we need to know the name of the book, Stephen. If
Well,
not, because,
listen, that's
because
just details.
yeah, I just put slam poetry and anything could come out. So
There you go.
So the book, it's not out yet. I'm sending it out right now. I finished.
Is that the name of? Is that the name of the title? It's not.
No, the book is called the book is called Sovereign Wife.
Okay.
Sovereign Wife, like sovereignty and wife.
Why don't you just call it my chattel? Anyway, so what do you call your wife? My sovereignty. What are you, like Game of Thrones? So it's just, it's this 20-year-old generation. That's all I can say. Anyway, so it's called My Sovereign Wife, which I have so many things to say, but when I see you in New York at Dim Sum Darling, we'll discuss that. But anyway, so it's called My Sovereign Wife. And then how many poems, how big's the book, who's publishing it, where can people buy it, all that cool stuff.
I don't know who's publishing it yet. I'm sending it out to contests about now because I finished it in March of this year. So it was basically my grad school like manuscript. And when I graduated from grad school, I was like, I don't like this at all. I wasn't happy with it. And then I took another like 2 to 3 years and basically started from scratch. And so I just finished it in March this year after starting from scratch. I'm sending it out to like a lot of publishers and presses right now.
Right.
And yeah, hopefully it'll be out in 2023, 2024, which is how long the publishing cycle takes, apparently.
We spoke with a lady named Mel Harris on our show, maybe a month ago. Mel self-published on Amazon. And apparently that works really well. And I think the guy we spoke to yesterday, Greg Shapiro, I think self-publishes on Amazon as well.
Yeah.
It may be something to look
at. So print on demand as well. Yeah. So it could be that you just give people just an idea, or, just, a brain fart that just drifted in. It could be that you say you want to give something away after your poetry readings. You could give them like a handwritten card saying, hey, send me your email, and when this is when the book's going to come out, and you can order it you may have it printed one-on-one because it's all print on demand.
That's a really good idea, actually, to have kind of like a mailing list. I feel like a lot of poets have mailing lists.
You're a poet. You should have a mailing list. You have to market yourself. Everybody has a mailing list. Even Two Old Farts has a mailing list.
Everybody's a mailing list.
Every mailing list. I mean, two people are on it.
As I say, who's on our mailing list, Steve?
You and I are on our mailing list. So it works like 2 people. I said.
Yeah,
two people. We have 12 fans.
I thought that's because we were both males.
Well, look at you. He's here till Thursday, folks. Try the veal and tip the waitstaff. All right. So we have a book that is going to come out in the next year or two, maybe sooner. When it comes out, we definitely want you to come back and show like you're going to hold it up. Unless you do self-publishing on Amazon, you could be back next week. And then the other thing is, so before we have you read some poetry, because I'm sure all the people that want to snap their fingers are in their cars right now on the podcast going, this is cool. So tell us about the 9th house, since it's not really an astrology thing and it's just referring to the thing. I know that because I read that on your site, because other than that, I'd be like, what the heck? So
Stephen, this is a website. The website
and that's called Janelle, what's your website called?
It's a ninthhousenyc.com. And it's a poetry school for children. that's the original idea, is that I would teach specialized creative writing classes, mostly based on poetry, to children aged 9 to 14, because the middle grades are kind of neglected in after school programming. In fact, I've had a lot of bookstores and a lot of places tell me that that age group is something that they've had a really hard time filling, because it's a very underserved kind of like population in terms of after school programs. So there's a lot of after school programs for like elementary school, which like, ages 9 to 12 is part of, but there's not so much for like 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and covering that. So that was the original idea. And it started because I taught at NYU, and then I had a private school teaching career, and I left the private school world to start this, and kind of like just taking a lot of the curriculum stuff and a lot of stuff that I learned from my time at private schools, and just using that as kind of like the philosophy with which I built the company around. But now we're also, like, yesterday we just launched this. We're doing private career consulting for artists, specifically artists looking for non-traditional careers, because my own career path has been so curvy, circuitous, unconventional. And, like, I basically do what we call like the artist's way. And so my goal is to help more artists support themselves and have sustainable careers doing kind of what they love or adjacent to what they love, and building a sustainable career that can help them live financially in a kind of unconventional, non-traditional way.
That is very, so when you say artists, are we talking about poetry, artists that paint? What kind of artists are we helping?
All kinds, because I realized, so I'll just talk about poetry from my perspective, which is when I went to the poetry school, a lot of people who graduated ended up working in copywriting or publishing or writing for magazines or freelance writing. And so a lot of people thought that they had to do things that were writing related. But it turns out that you have a bunch of different skills. Like if you are a translator, you can then go and work for a localization company. If you have sort of experience in, I don't know, in some kind of like, I don't know, whatever your experience is, if you are like an editor, you can then go on and do editing for like college essays and kind of college entrance essays, which are like, which is a super lucrative market, so I just feel like it's like skills that you have that don't necessarily have to be in the writing space, which doesn't pay at all. And it's a space where, like, especially in publishing, a lot of my clients are trying to leave publishing because it doesn't pay. And so it's like, how do you sell the experience that you have working in publishing? And how do you kind of like make a career switch using some of those skills and using your interests to build something that's a lot more financially sustainable than working in publishing and working like 4 jobs on the side to make a living in New York City? Yeah.
Right. Well, in New York, I was going to say in New York, yes. In New York, you have to work 9,000 jobs just to pay the rent. So unless you live on one of the outer, and then it's like you don't have to have 12 roommates. But see, people don't know that. So don't worry, David, I won't go off on a tangent. So, but I like this consulting thing. I think that's very cool. So when I saw you a month ago, were you doing that, or is that just brand new?
So a month ago, I was doing it for my first 3 clients, and I did it pro bono for my first 3 clients to get testimonials.
Okay.
And we officially launched it yesterday because I kind of finished my work with those clients, and now I have testimonials. So I felt like it was ready to launch a product.
Nice, very cool.
And all that will be on the website, Janelle?
It is.
It is already?
It is.
Okay.
It says you hit consulting, and the testimonials are on the website as well.
Okay, so if people wanted to get their kids involved in writing poetry or just the literary skills, they can go to your website, and it's an online course, I take it, or are you doing one-to-one with people?
So what it is right now is I have rented a space. It's like in person because it's really hard right now for me to like teach class on Zoom, especially with writing. So I've rented a class space in Brooklyn, but I think as the company scales, we're going to try and hire more instructors nationally and do a mix of like video and in person. But for now, it's just me. It's a one-woman show in Brooklyn.
She's getting paid by Brooklyn now, not me. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, Brooklyn tourist department eats your heart out, as I can say.
that's right.
They get all this free promo, that nobody has to, go and study how to do it. Is it somewhere near New York, Stephen?
Brooklyn, it's over a bridge. You can't miss it. And there's a book
Oh.
called A Tree Grew in Brooklyn. It was written back in the 60s. It's a very good book.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it
not
just
even
one?
about a tree.
Is it just one tree in particular, or?
In the 60s, there was just one tree. Now Brooklyn's like Brooklyn's like a real, like, there's many trees and families and stuff. When I was a kid growing up, you didn't go to Brooklyn or the Bronx or Queens, and now everybody goes there.
Yeah.
So,
And of course, that was the late 19th century, of course. So
well,
things
that
have
was
changed a lot.
1343, and the indigenous tribes didn't like us. It was a whole thing. And,
Yeah,
they would throw
the whole
things at
thing.
you. It was
The whole
terrible.
thing.
So yeah, it was one of those
But
things.
enough of this mindless banter. What I would like, I'd like some poetry.
Oh yeah, I want to hear the U-Haul if we can, because that just sounds like
That just
anything
sounds-
anything about lesbians on there. So I always want to, so.
Okay.
Other sexual preferences are available. We just say that as well.
That's fine. You can pick A through Z, but she said this was about lesbians, so that's what I heard. So that's it. So I'm 5 years old. What do you want? So,
Yeah, got to put the 100 in front of that, but we'll get there.
that's fine. So
Okay, so I'm gonna read the U-Haul poem, and then maybe I will read 2 more from the
very
book.
cool. That would
Yes,
be
please.
awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna read the U-Haul poem as requested. Okay.
Only because you brought it up, and it sounds very cute and funny. So I'm figuring let's go for the U-Haul poem.
Okay, so it's not that funny, but it's definitely a lesbian joke, or two in there. Okay.
That's fine. So for all the lesbians that are listening, we're not apologizing because she wrote this specifically apparently for lesbians. And so for all the straight people, you just have to figure it out on yourself. So there you go.
Yeah, I'll put on another podcast if it offends you. That's all I can say.
That's right. Most of our podcasts offend everybody, so it doesn't matter. All right, there you go. We'll be quiet while you read the U-Haul.
After I ask you to U-Haul with me, I could never make you live here. The rain ankle high an hour ago, and now the snow falling in sheets, and the heat keeps rattling, and all the street signs are long cries, and every phone call I make is punctuated by a Shakira song, and the neighbor's footsteps muscle through the ceiling, and every night when I turn off the lights, it's still so bright. For months, the sidewalk impressionist with bird shit, the 4 trees outside my window, an entire city of birds. See, I am jealous of the birds flying south to unravel the sky above you. Your name and mine come from the same root, meaning mercy, meaning you are not mine, only that I see myself in a storefront. New York City, a cage around you. The trees cannot tell birds where to go. My love, let me mirror you in mercy. There are rivers running elsewhere. Go. Okay.
Very. I caught the Shania thing, or the whatever Connor thing. So see, I caught that. So wait, now we got to do this, right? We got to stop the finger thing. So it's very cool. I like that. That's very.
No,
nice.
I'm going to be old school, Steve, and I'm just gonna clap.
This is
because at my age, the arthritis is just too bad.
We'll hurt the fingers. And here's the funny part: that clapping that we just did is louder than the 60 people doing this. You know what I'm saying? So there you go. So she's like, I performed in front of 100 people, and that guy heard this time. So there you go. That was excellent. All right, so we have 2 more, and these are from the book.
These are from the book.
All right, publishers, pay attention, or Amazon, or whoever you're going to self-publish with.
So this is like, these are poems that are about the section of the Singapore Penal Code, Section 377A, which is a British colonial era law that criminalizes gay sex. And it was repealed a month ago, but I read these at a different time, and these are kind of like the spine of the book. There's 4 377A poems about various things about being queer. Okay. Section 377A, light. Tonight, my life begins in your eyes. My only thought is how to keep alive. Humid and lit, I have come to be saved by the pink light, the open door, by your finger in my mouth, cold as water. Stranger, steal me small belonging for this hour. Home is a window light makes of your face. In tomorrow's monotonous hour, I will turn from a man under white light. But in this dim, your hand on my waist is God in this light. On the back of your neck, my hand is shadow, wandering. Stranger, my body is your mouth wide open. You raise your hand, dust splits, leaks through your fingers. Your light enters me. Okay, and then this one is
That was very, wait. We have to applaud.
Yeah, we did. We have.
Very nice. I can't applaud too loud because the dog and the babysitter are here. And yes, the dog has its own babysitter, not a friggin' word. You understand what I'm saying? Anyway, so I don't want to bother either of them. But yes, that was very cool. I like that. Who knew you had all this talent when we met at Dim Sum Darling? I mean, your cousin talks about you like, you know, you're a star, a celebrity, which you are now because you've been on this show. But I mean, like in tour, whatever. So yeah, you got to print T-shirts and everything. All right, so the next poem.
Stephen, just before we jump into the next poem, you keep going on about dumplings. What's all that about?
Dim Sum Darling is Dim Sum Darling. Where is it? New York. That's where I met Janelle. It's going to be it's the best dumplings I think on the planet. So and that's
it. Where will that be? Where will that be in New York, Stephen?
It'll be at 135. I even know the address. 135 West 50th Street at what they call Urban Hawker. And a hawker is the little booths you see in Singapore. And Janelle knows more about that than I do. But yeah, it's Urban Hawker. There's about 15 or 16 vendors. Everybody specifically sells their own stuff. But that's where Janelle and I met. Was at I guess the mayor was there that night. Was you there with the mayor night, or were you there after the mayor?
No, I was there after the mayor.
After the mayor,
before the mayor.
Yeah, maybe before. Were you there for the lion dance though?
Yeah.
Okay. So we saw the lion dance and everything.
Yeah. So that was a horse and a lion that came then.
We saw a horse, a lion, and the mayor. He's only this tall. So he's a very nice guy though. It's very exciting. So and then he was going to drink the Milo. For the people that don't know what Milo is, look it up. So when he was doing the Milo portion, he missed all that. But anyway, it's enough about the mayor and Urban Hawker. Miss Tan has another poem that we want to definitely hear about.
And this one is called, you know.
This one is it's another one of the Section 377A poems. The plug is these two are not out yet, but if people would like to read more of the 377A poems, there's a few online that they can read via my website, janelle-tan.com. And there's one, I think there's two of them that have been published from this series.
Well, we'd very much like to either to have one complete poem or an extract from it and put it on the www.twooldfarts.vip site, because hey, you know, it's great stuff, and I think people are really going to warm to it. So we'd love to share that from our side. Anyway, back to the poem.
Okay, so I'm going to read this one, which is out. I realize on tour that people like to read things that they can find online. So I'm going to read this, which is out already. Okay. Section 377A, America. Back then at customs, a window opened. How are you two related? Wife, I tell them, a life of affection in a single syllable, a whisper, a laugh in your ear, the window a fickle border. Wife, a name in one country, but not another. Our name for each other real within these borders. I asked you how you would describe us. You smiled, then laughed. I asked, how wide are we? Our country's the gulf between us. But with you, I was in America looking out at other borders. I thought our mouths around the same 5 spoons meant a border around us. I thought your mouth on mine meant America was mine to criticize. At the airport, we stood in different lines. You always waiting with the bags while they examined every letter on my visa. My once wife, I wish for you a woman with no borders. I wish for you every window always open.
Oh, wow, I'm not. Yeah.
That was beauty. That was beauty.
I was trying to work out if that was a sad or a happy poem. That
the poetry, poetry, I think, is both at the same time. You're happy, you're sad.
Yeah,
It's one of
yeah,
those things.
yeah.
She's
But more,
crying because that was there. You go. So it was a sad,
no, but
a
more,
sad, happy poem.
but more from out of Janelle's perspective, really, because I was there. I was watching what was happening. And should I have been happy when I watched you two, or should I have been sad?
I think that's kind of the question of the book, because I think the question of the book is interesting because when I was putting together the book, I had started it with a very political poem and ended it with a very political poem. And I think I had kind of had this idea that, a more political book would somehow be kind of what the market wanted. And I was on the phone with a very close friend, Rob, who said, Janelle, I am more activated by love than I am by a political debate. And because of that, I kind of changed the arc of the book so that it kind of celebrated love and it celebrated queer love. And it's kind of like I guess the thesis of the book is that, queer love, what queer love can look like in like a utopic world, and like what the forces are around it, whether the forces are immigration, kind of, like America in general, Singapore, like there are a lot of forces against it, but it is a celebration, I guess, of what it means, of like the possibility of queer love despite all of these things.
So now here's my question, and I don't mean this, and just because I'm an old school guy. So if we say queer love, are we frowned upon as straight people, or can we say queer love? Because and David knows how I feel about this. I look at and you and I talked about this. Everyone's a human being until they're not. So just the fact that two people of the same sex love you, I could care less. It's still love. So is it really just queer love or just the love of two human beings?
I think it is the love of two human beings. And I think that's, I guess, the challenge of the book is to ask us to consider that, because there's some poems I use like you, and I don't like specify the gender, but like kind of the arc of the whole book, you kind of get a sense. But some of these are just like love poems, and some of these are just like poems to a you that someone is building a life with, and it's not, it doesn't like club you over the head at every minute with like a hi.
So, but it's I like that. I mean, the poetry is very powerful and strong. Like it it's very cool. I mean, even the U-Haul one, which we made a joke about earlier, but to me, at the end of the day, everyone's a human being until they're not, right? So I don't care who you're in love with or whatever. So to me, I liked it. So I don't know. I mean, yes, I don't, and the book isn't called, or your poetry isn't called, the book is not like queer love poetry, I'm assuming. So what's the title of the book or the poetry book?
Oh, the poetry book that's Sovereign Wife.
Sovereign Wife. Okay. I just want to make sure I got that right. So part of it then, as you put it, will be about, we'll say love or queer love, which is no big deal. And then other things. So is most of the book then about, to use your vernacular, queer love, or is it about love in general, or is it a mixture of, and is there other things in there that people will be like, oh, that's really cool? Or is it not so much making a political statement, is it's just making a statement about love?
I think it's kind of both, because I think, so some of it is about being queer and Singaporean and kind of the forces about that. But I think what I hope is, I think people just see it as like a relationship. And I always feel like a relationship is not just a relationship, but it's about the political and social forces around it. That, and that's kind of what I'm trying to convey, I guess. It's just like, I know people that I've read 377 America to, who are like Americans who are married to non-Americans, and it's like they feel a shock of recognition when they hear it too, even though they're not queer. Like, that experience of like being at immigration and like standing in two separate lines, we've all felt that, I think, at a certain point, whether or not we're queer. And I think the queerness is like another dimension to that, because there's certain kind of homophobic like laws that are challenged by it. But I think back about like, about some of the other poems in the book, and some of them speak to more universal experiences about like living in New York City and being disappointed by kind of your own country. And, some of these are more universal themes. Yeah.
I'm still stuck at the airport. I mean, that's kind of slightly burned into my brain today in the nicest possible way. I'm stuck in the airport. I've experienced what immigration is as well, because I'm I'm now, when I first came to Holland, I wasn't Dutch, so I couldn't go through the Dutch passport thing. Now with Brexit, I'm put aside as well. So you have this, they're going through one thing, I'm going through another. But just standing there and observing that and seeing this quite obvious relationship and going through my database of emotions in my mind, are they sisters? Are they cousins? And I was processing that all the way through while you were reading. And then you reach a conclusion the other side. And the question is, oh, okay, yeah. But there's, that relationship, that love that you were trying to portray was so strong. Like I say, I've still got that stuck in my head. So double applause for me today on that one. Thank you for that. It's made my afternoon. No, Stephen's morning, I'm not sure, but certainly made my afternoon. I love that. You see, I love the fact that people can paint inside my head. And that's what poetry does for me in good literature. I'm a TV junkie like everybody else is, but give me a good book or some poems, and let be open to that, and let somebody paint something into my mind that I've never seen before. I find that a real release. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a Eto Adnan quote that's like poetry is not about language, but it needs it. And I always think, for me, like personally, for my poetry, it's about image. And I feel like it's kind of like I'm painting images.
Yeah.
Language. It's not so much about like, of course, some of it is like, you're still using language and it's still language play. But for me, I find that the things that stick with me and that are most powerful are kind of like, you're like painting images, kind of.
Yeah, painting mental images. It's very cool. And the poetry, like I said earlier, is very powerful. So it's very, I like it. So now I want to see the book published because I want to read the rest of it. Or have someone read it to me. I think it's probably more meaningful that way. So now you should do a tour.
Yeah,
you could do, and I mean this in a positive, nice way. So if anybody, because I could care less about woke and cancel corporate, whatever. I think we will play my favorite game, which is go hide and go fuck yourself. However, you could literally do the queer love tour of poetry, and I think that would explode. I think you would and I'm not kidding, you would sell out stadiums, and you could have t-shirts made, because I think that people would love this. Listen, I'm a smart ass. You know that. But at the end of the day, I truly think if you had the queer love poetry tour, I think you would kick ass.
Yeah. Oh,
and if you do it, we'll want to be at the first one to do a live broadcast of it. That would be awesome. I'm thinking you would do really well.
And then we'll get you into Holland, because they're going to dig that, because it's a market which is open to that. We have one of our really early guests who does this queer comic, a gay comic, he called it. Say the same issues, but he's doing exactly what you were doing, only he takes it, he makes it slightly easier for people because he's producing comics. So the imagery is already there. And when your poetry was, when you took me on that journey, I'm still stuck in the airport watching you two guys. That's an absolute skill, and I'm truly complimentary. I don't say apprehensive about having a poet on. We're open. The Two Old Farts is a platform really for artisans. Whatever people can bring, cookery, entrepreneurship, or whatever. If you're an artisan, tell us about it, because Stephen and I are fascinated by that. But I'm really, really, really pleasantly surprised. And you put me down for one of your books, so I'm going to put it back. It's going straight on the shelf, honestly. After I've read it and bored the crap out of everybody telling me how wonderful it is. But yeah, thank you.
Amazon on demand. I'm telling you, do it. He'll be order number one's coming from the guy with the hamburger hat right now. So, but no, it's very cool, very nice. So, how many poems will be in the book, The Sovereign Wife?
I think the book is 49 pages. It's very, very small. It's a very, very small book, because most poetry manuscripts are 48 to 60, but when you print them, 48 pages become 60. So it's about, I would say, it's probably going to be 60-ish pages, and that's it. I just wanted a book that was like all hits and no skips, you know.
Gotcha. And so how many poems will be in 60 pages? About 40?
40, about some of them are like several pages, some of them is one page, so about 40, 50.
Okay, very cool. I'm waiting. So yeah, if when you get it published, let us know. But if you go to Amazon, we'll talk after this about how that works. And you do that on Amazon on demand, we'll have you back and you can print one and show it to everybody, and we'll have them do that. And you'll be our in-house poet, so to speak.
Well,
yeah.
I think it kind of adds up for you as well, you know, because there's the sort of public that are going to be coming to see you. You know, people are going to think, you know, not once, but maybe twice or three times about the world that they live in. And you say, hey, look, I could have made 50 books and have them all stacked up, and, you know, and all the trees that got cut down, et cetera, et cetera. But look, if you like my work, come on the mailing list and I'll print one just for you on demand. And that kind of stacks up, I think, really, if you get the part of stacking up books. But yeah, it may be a real way forward, and a believable and honest story. You know, why have, you know, boxes full of poetry books that you can't sell, where you can, you know, put your mailing list together and then people will get them as and when they need them.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I think there's things about the publishing industry that I think kind of like should be leaning more towards that. You know, it's like how it's kind of like how in the publishing industry, pre-orders are really heavily weighted, and pre-orders are really heavily weighted because pre-orders are the thing that get you like reviews and interviews and advanced praise. And so I think it is moving towards that kind of model, which is interesting. It's like, as you're talking about this idea of like, we're going to print in this print run based on the number of pre-orders that a book has, because and I think it's really, really just like fascinating how we've moved towards this kind of like advanced demand kind of model.
Yeah, we had this debate about tickets, Stephen and I did quite a while ago about, you know, shows. All the shows sold out, but it's not actually been sold out 9 out of 10 times. The ticketing company has bought the tickets. So, you know, the theatre and the artists are all happy because they've got the money in, and then another entity has to go out and, you know, dump them and pump them or whatever to get their money back. So, yeah, it's a bit of a crazy world. Again, if they pay you in advance and you get all this money up front, and then because somebody's paid you an advanced fee, you have to go and produce so many books to cover the fee. Seems a bit of a crazy thing. And of course, poetry for me is quite intimate as well. And I think the people who come to see you and the people who stop and want to speak to you after you've read your poetry are people who are genuinely interested in you. And so, you know, just the way that you could offer a book, it's okay, you really like my stuff? Well, I'll have a book specially printed for you. You know, and in the beginning, you can even sign them off, you know.
Yeah, you can sign them. When you're famous, people will like, I have a missed hand.
Yeah, the first run, yeah. Before, you know, Random House or somebody else, Penguin takes it over and does its thing.
You become rich and famous and you forget, you know, who put you on the map, us. But no, don't worry about that. So, but no, so you should seriously, it's phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
Because I know when we spoke and you were like, I do poetry and I do this, I was like, that's cool. It'll be fun because you're a bubbly personality, but this has depth and stuff. And like I said, everybody's a human being until they're not. So I like the title. Now I understand more of the Sovereign Wife. I was going back, of course, to when I was a kid in the 1300s. That would be BC. And that was what you call, you know, the property and chattel, but you're bringing it into something different. So no, I very much liked it. And I think for the gay community, if you will, I think it's like, if they hear this, I think it's strong. So I really was not kidding. You really could have your queer whatever tour, and I think you would kick ass. And and if you do it, we want to be there. So you let us know.
Well, unfortunately, I won't be able to be there, but
well, if you go to Amsterdam, David will be there. Anything in the States will be there for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have our support, 1,000%.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's also interesting because I think I've been told by so many people that it's like, oh, you're a success, like ninth house is success. is kind of like tied to your success as a poet. And I find that really true, actually, because I think the more almost like legitimacy you have as a poet, the more like parents are gonna be like, oh yeah, you know, you could teach our kid, you know. And it's interesting because I have this poem coming out this Sunday in the Atlantic, and I think it's gonna like I'm hoping it brings Ninth House some traffic in the meantime.
All right, so you have a choice. We can usually after the show we put the podcast out the day of. If not, this show will actually air on the 20th of October. So we can make the podcast and the show air on the 20th. If you want to read the Atlantic poem, we will not publish this. We'll embargo our show until the 20th when you go live. The podcast and the show would go out at the same time if you want to read that. So everybody that doesn't get the Atlantic can hear it. You're more than welcome to.
Yeah, it's actually the Atlantic Online, which is not behind the paywall. It's not behind the paywall, okay. So people can read it. People can read it. It's kind of a poem that I never really read out loud because it's really intense.
World exclusive.
Yep. There you go. It's up to you. You don't have to read it, but if you want to read it, like I said, we'll hold everything and we won't upload the podcast today, which is the 12th. We will upload everything on the 20th so people can read it. And the people that don't see it can at least hear it. So it's totally your call.
And the people who are listening to this in 3 months' time have not got a clue what date we're talking about. But hey, you know.
Right. There you go.
There you go.
Well, the people who listen to it 3 months from now can go and click on the Atlantic link.
That's right.
On my website.
There you go. That's true.
And what is the name of your website? Tell us the name of your website again. Come on.
Janelle-Tan.com.
Okay.
And
the other one.
9000nyc.com.
And David will have, as he likes to do, all the links will be here.
Yeah. Stephen, you're learning.
You can always teach an old dog new tricks. Go figure. So I'm an old dog. So, all right. So are we going to get a world exclusive on this poem, or are you going to make people go to the Atlantic and read it?
I think I'm going to make people go to the Atlantic and read it.
All right.
Okay.
Now, when is the Atlantic is coming out? You said Sunday. So Sunday is the
16th.
The 16th of October for 2022 is when it'll come out. And then you'll put it on your site as well, I'm assuming on the 16th?
Yes, I will. So it will be the top link.
Okay.
The top link under work. People can read it there.
All right. Okay. Will it be the Ninth House or the Janelle/Tan site, or both?
It'll be on my personal. It'll be on the Janelle Tan website.
All right. Then David will get all that and he'll make sure that people know to go and do and whatever. So now we're going to put out the podcast today, and then people now are going to have to want to go to the Atlantic this coming Sunday.
So I think I'll just wrap up today by thanking everybody for staying on this long to listen to the world exclusive, which didn't happen. But thank you so much, Janelle, for being on the show today. Stephen, thank you very much for getting up so early in the morning to listen to all the crap that comes out of my mouth. But thank you, everybody, for listening. Don't forget, you can go and listen to all of this and check out all the profiles, check out all the links on www.twooldfarts.vip. Goodbye.
Cheers.